With the largest and one of the most rapidly growing cities in sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria has experienced the phenomenon of urbanization as thoroughly as any African nation. But its experience has also been unique in scale, in pervasiveness, and in historical antecedents. Urban regeneration is our focus today on EARTHFILE. Welcome to the program. I am Ayola Kasim. In 2011, the Lagos Metropolitan Development and Governance Project wrote to the community leaders in Etire, informing them of their intention to renovate the community senior secondary school. But 2 years after, the project is yet to commence. The coordinators say the project will commence immediately after the Joint Admission Matriculation Board examination, but the state of the facilities here leaves much to be desired. Although Africa has one of the lowest human development index in the world, it is estimated that within the next 2 decades, 87% of the population growth will take place in urban areas of the continent. Nigeria, as one of the economic giants in Africa, with a population of over 158 million, is currently overwhelmed by rapid urbanization, poor infrastructure, and ever-increasing number of urban slums across the country. The urban infrastructural decay, such as poor road network, lack of potable water supply, bad drainages and canals, poor housing and poor waste management systems have increased the environmental threats within the urban populace. With about 45% of the population living in urban settlements, experts have projected that by 2020, urban population in Nigeria will increase to about 68% of the population. The majority of urban infrastructure was developed during the military regime as far back as the early 70s. Despite the succession of a democratic governance in the 21st century, there has been an inadequate maintenance of infrastructure in most urban centers across Nigeria. The current government of Lagos State made it mandatory to establish regeneration projects within the built environment.
Way back in 2002, about a decade ago, there was a study to map out slums in the state, and then we had over 40 slums, and so 9 of the worst slums were picked for this project, so as to open them up through provision of infrastructure, and we're working on a number of on various streams. So, for instance, we're doing roads, we're doing drainages, we're providing community centers, we're providing citizen mediation center, which is an alternative dispute resolution mechanism. We are providing primary healthcare centers and canals and things like that. But
other urban centers in the country are less concerned about the increased rate of environmental dilapidation that has hindered the growth of many sectors, which in return has stagnated the economy over the years. There is an increasing level of disparity between urban and rural areas. The problems of the urban areas are as a result of the influx of people from the rural areas, traffic congestion and population amongst others. Some problems arise due to the pressure of people using the facilities compared to the number of people it was designed for. Nigeria's urban infrastructure is crumbling. Water supply, sewage, sanitation, drainage, roads, electricity and waste disposal all suffer from years of serious neglect. Periodic and routine maintenance, by far the most cost-effective infrastructure, spending is almost zero. It has become the norm in Nigeria to wait for a capital infusion to rehabilitate, replacing instead of maintaining the infrastructure. But declining financing resources is making this less feasible, and deterioration is accelerating. Compounding the situation is rapid urbanization caused by migration from rural areas. The number of people living in Nigeria's towns and cities is expected to double to 80 million in the next 13 years. Urbanization is a positive force in development. Cities and towns are home to most industries, commerce and services, all of which can be highly productive. Urban pollution and poor management of municipal waste add to the health hazards. Numerous industries dump untreated and often toxic liquids in open gutters, streams, rivers and lagoons. And as elsewhere, fumes from vehicles contaminate the air and water. Over 55% of infrastructures across urban centers in Nigeria have not been fully operational for the past decade. This is associated with poor urban renewal plans, lack of regeneration policies, increased poverty, insecurity, corruption, insufficient environmental regeneration, stakeholders' differences, and inefficiency in incorporating people's initiatives. Nonetheless, sustainable urban renewal in Nigeria is important to mitigate against climate change challenges. This is because while most urban centers are located on low-lying coastlines, others are located in the arid zones of the country. The increased number of aged buildings in most urban centers such as Lagos, Ibadan, Kano and Port Harcourt has also increased the demand for urban renewal across Nigeria. Moreover, the infrastructure gap between urban populace and the environment has continued to widen. One of the major preoccupations of the Lagos State government is environmental renewal. The government is challenged to invest heavily in the sector as a littoral state which is greatly exposed to environmental abuse due to intense economic and social activities. From landscape design and management, promotion of cleaner cities through greening and solid waste management, enforcement of population controls for industries, the Lagos State government has commenced the development of 9 communities out of the 42 in the state in participation with the World Bank. The settlements are classified as blighted areas within the state, and those being developed at the moment are Agege, Ajegunle, Badia, Makoko, Bariga, Ilaje, Ijesha-Tedo Itire, Amukoko and Iwaya. With a $200 million credit facility from the World Bank, the project aims primarily to increase sustainable access to basic urban services through investments in critical infrastructure. The project, which began in July 2006, has a September 2013 termination date. These areas were selected because a 1995 comprehensive study of living conditions in Lagos identified them as the largest slum areas. The 10 communities express needs and priorities that have been packaged into multi-sectoral investment programs.
First and foremost is to look at development as a holistic, look at development holistically. It's impossible for the government to develop everywhere within 5 or 6 years. This is a 7-year project, but then it's a special utility vehicle aimed at slum upgrade, and so that lessons learned can be shared with other agencies of government to scale up. The projects were actually identified using a community-driven development model, which is you go into a community, do a needs assessment, and with the community people, you facilitate them to identify, their priorities. And so the community will say, this is what we want. We want this road, we want this school, we want primary health care center. Because government can never, have unlimited resources. So it's about prioritizing and it's strategic development. So we identify, for instance, this is a major road that can open up this area. Let us do it. This drains would help to deflood these areas. Let us do them. These are schools in this area that people need to, go to get access education. Because if you look at it, it's about access to infrastructure. So it's the infrastructure that gives, the most impact, that has the biggest impact that we target.
In these communities, different stakeholders meetings was carried out with key stakeholders and NGOs where the community expressed their needs in the order of priorities. So after that, a kind of implementation stage now started, which the primary center happens to be one of them for Badia community. For your information, there was an health center here before existing, but it was in bad shape, and going by the environment, you can imagine how it was then. It was almost collapsing, so LMDG had to bring it down, rebuild this one, and it was completed sometime around 2009. So ever since, it's been in operation for generally mother and child and general well-being of the community, but majorly most attendants are for antenatal, child care, and the other things. The unique nature of Badia is such that it's one of the roads where we are not constructing the road with asphalt because of the water challenge of Badia. From what we can see as we drove through, you could see that some of the roads were in bad shape because of the water. But for Badia, we decided to use interlocking stone. Interlocking stone also for sustainability purpose, because if it were to be like asphalt, once there is a problem, somebody needs to go and get an asphalt or get asphalt, which is not within the reach of the ordinary man. But for interlocking stones, the community can just mobilize themselves, get sharp sand, fill up the space, remove the stone, fix it back, which is more sustainable. The whole idea of the road is to ensure that these infrastructures are sustainable. Now, most of the houses in Badia, if you look at them critically they are almost sinking. Any attempt to do a road maintaining that same level will mean money down the drain, because it's only a question of just one single rain. The whole road will be washed off. So the best is to lift the road slightly higher above the drain. And also, I want you to understand that the design of drains and road is dependent on the invert level of the existing drain. The invert level is what you take into consideration when you are constructing road in terms of where is the nearest place where the drain can drain to. Where is the nearest channel or the available collector channel or collector drain, as the case may be, where these tertiary drains can drain into. If you don't put that into consideration, there will be problems. So the little I know of engineering is that they consider the invert level of where these drains will drain to. That will now determine the height of the drain. And also in Badia, most of the houses are almost sinking. Like I said, Badia is said to be below sea level. It's always waterlogged. So the best thing to sustain the road is to lift it slightly higher. And it might interest you to know that for these drains, each of the houses, a kind of whip hole has been created in the drain to take care of wastewaters within these compounds, within this community. So ideally, we don't envisage any kind of flooding, as the case may be, within this compound, if only they don't block the whip hole that has been created, like the one I showed you on Giwa Street. We have this, but it's now left for the community to ensure, or the house owners, to ensure that they clear and clean this drain as often as possible so that it doesn't get blocked with waste. It's not enough for the government to put up these things and then try to sustain for the people. The people must take ownership of these things. These are things that they expressed that they wanted for their community. And they expressed willingness to maintain these things. But the Community Development Association has to come on board at this stage to ensure that these things are well sustained, ensure that people don't dump waste in the drains. And I'm not saying this to spite the community, but because of the nature of Badia, the only way they feel they can stabilize the soil is to fill